Hi, we're here today with Elizabeth Lawley, who is the professor at the School of Interactive Games and Media at Rochester Institute of Technology and also the director of the Lab for Social Computing. And I have known Liz Lawley for quite a while because she's been very active in the social computing arena. She was has been for quite a while a pretty well-known blogger with Mama Musings. So she is one of those teachers who is a very active practitioner, and I'm very interested in what you're doing, Professor Lawley, with Just Press Play. Can you explain what that is and how it works?
Sure, I'd love to. So, Just Press Play is an attempt to use game design concepts and principles in an attempt to make the undergraduate experience a little more engaging and a little more playful. It's easy to call it gamification. It's not a term that I like very much because that gives the sense that we're just going to add points and badges and then everything will be better. And what we're trying to do is something a little more complex than that. And we started out thinking about the undergraduate experience a little bit like the hero's journey. Right? The protagonist shows up. They know they have to slay the dragon and get the pot of gold, which if in our case is graduate and get a full-time job. Along the way, they hit all of these what feel like arbitrary obstacles. Right? Now, we know as the reader that those arbitrary obstacles along the way actually prepare them to slay the dragon. But for our students, a lot of the things we ask them to do feel arbitrary until after they're done. And the other thing that we know, in addition to us not doing a good job of sort of saying, why do these things matter? How are these skills valuable while they're getting them? Is we also know that the most successful students build strong connections with faculty members, with staff members, with other students. Those social bonds are critically important in retention and in student success. So we thought about what do games do well that could help us make the student experience better. And what we ended up with is a system that's intended to be totally outside of curriculum. This isn't part of their classes. It isn't required. It's entirely voluntary. But they can get achievements for various kinds of creative and social and extracurricular activities, all of which are tied in some way to things that we know mirror successful students' behavior. But they're done in a way to be playful and engaging. So one example is an achievement we have called the Last Supper. And what students have to do to get that is they have to eat in an off-campus restaurant with 12 other people and take a picture of it. Now, this sounds like just sort of a silly, playful thing, but it turns out there's some really valuable skills that come into that. One is finding a restaurant in the area that can accommodate a large group. Another is the fairly complex social organization task of getting 13 people to one place at one time. They come out of it not thinking, well, that was good, I learned something. They come out of it saying, that was fun, and now I have this picture, and I have this memory, and I want to tell other people about this restaurant that I went to. So there's that kind of activity. There are also, all of our faculty and staff members have collectible cards. And each of us has defined a different playful interaction for getting the card. So mine is called For the Lulls, which is a play on my last name. To get my card, they have to make me laugh out loud. Giggle, okay, smothered chuckles. It has to be a full-fledged guffaw. And it turns out that that's more challenging than many people think, but it leads to really wonderful, playful interactions between me and the students. Gives them a reason to come talk to me and interact with me that doesn't involve saying, can I have help with this problem? I'm stuck on this material. It humanizes the connections. The one achievement that we were happiest with in this first pilot version of the game was one that we called Undying. And we know that traditionally, over the past several years, about 85% of our freshmen will pass their first serious programming class. Now that's a really good number in computing, but it's not as good as we'd like. So we put an achievement in just as a test. We said, if 90% of our freshmen pass that programming class, everybody playing the game gets the achievement. And what happened was the upperclassmen who were most involved with the game realized they weren't going to get the achievement unless they helped the freshmen study. And they came to me and said, can we organize a study session? Would that be okay? And I said, well, yes, actually, that would be fabulous if you wanted to spontaneously organize a peer mentoring study session. So they did, and 40 students showed up for it. And 92% of our students passed the programming class. Now, I can't prove causality in that, but I can say that there's lots of research that tells you that peer mentoring and support from upperclassmen is valuable in motivating students. But the really interesting thing that happened after that is once they already had the achievement, the upperclassmen came back to me the next quarter and said, we really enjoyed doing that. Can we do that every quarter? And they did. They did it again in the winter, and they did it again in the spring, and each time there were more upperclassmen who showed up to do the peer mentoring. So we accomplished exactly what we wanted, which is it was a nudge into a kind of behavior we knew was positive, but into one that was intrinsically rewarding, one that we thought if they do this, we think they'll be glad they did it. We think they'll get some sense of satisfaction, and it will move them to continue that. So in a nutshell, that's what we're trying to do with the game.
It's interesting that the game activities quite often catalyze face-to-face interaction in the offline world, which is sort of the opposite of what people think gamers are doing or games do. What have you learned from the first? How many times have you done this?
Well, this unlike a lot of pervasive or alternate reality games, this one didn't run for just a short period of time. We launched it last October when we ran it for the full academic year. And the goal is to have this be not so much a game, so much as what we're calling a gaming layer that's there all the time, that becomes an ongoing part of their experience and that allows them to not just collect achievements, but also remember and reflect on the things that they've done while they're students and share that with other students so that people can say, wow, that looked like it was really fun. I want to do it too. We learned a lot of things in the first year. When we set out to do this, the first thing people said to us was, well, that seems so obvious to give students achievements. You know, I'm sure somebody else has done that. Turns out no. And the reason nobody else has done it is it's really hard to do it well. It's hard on a technical level, it's hard on a game design level, it's hard on a communication level. And so we got a lot of things right, and of course I just described to you all the things that are the success parts, because those are the fun things to talk about. We got a lot of things wrong as well, some of them very boring, low-level infrastructure things. We started out with a very kitchen sink approach of, you know, we want this to do everything social. And as a result, it did nothing as well as it should have. It was duct tape and baling wire underneath the surface. So we're rebuilding the entire thing from scratch now with a much clearer, better scope to view of it. But from a user experience standpoint, we also realized that we had put too much of the focus on the content on freshmen and sophomores, the early introductory stuff. And we hadn't really put enough time into thinking about mastery level things. How to, what are the things that would engage juniors and seniors and even alumni in wanting to stay connected to the system. So we're doing a lot of additional content this year. We also found that we thought we had a very clever mechanism for people to get achievements last year, and that was we had these little collectible cards, and on the collectible card we did variable data printing so that there was a unique code on each card tied to the achievement. So if you got my achievement, I handed you my card, it had a unique code, and you went and you entered that in on the website. Turns out almost nobody entered them in on the website. Typing in 25 characters code is a pain in the ass, basically. And so people liked having the cards, but they didn't bother to go to the website and enter anything in. So we didn't actually know who was doing the achievements because we didn't have a good trail on it. And it was frustrating for the students too, because you type the code in, you get one character wrong, way too much friction in the user experience. So this year, when we launch in the fall, we're going an entirely different route, which is every student's going to have a QR code on either a key fob. They're going to give them a sticker and a key fob. They can either use the key fob or they can put the sticker on their ID card. All of the faculty and staff and anybody who's in a position to award an achievement will have a mobile app on their phone that they can use to scan the QR code. So now, if a student makes me laugh, I scan their code. They get immediately get the achievement, and then they can stop by the game office at any point and say, hey, can I pick up the card that goes with all those achievements I just got? And we'll have a centralized card distribution point. And we're also just spending a lot more time this time around, now that we know what people like, what they didn't like, and what engaged them, we're building on that in terms of the content. And our goal by the end of this year is hopefully to have a package that we can give to other people. It's all going to be open sourced. Everything's going to be documented. And ideally, once we've worked all these problems out, we'll give it away. We'll give it to people and say, try this with your content, with your students. It's not going to be easy because you still got to make that content specific to what your students care about. But we can at least take away the technical barriers and address the problems that we ran into the first time around.
When you say distributing it, you mean among the faculty at Rochester Institute of Technology, or anybody anywhere who wants to try this? Great. Well, you anticipated my final question, which was, do you think that this could be replicated? So it sounds to me like, yes, you do, and you're going to help catalyze that.
It's a qualified yes, right? It's not a just add water kind of thing. I can give you the platform, and I can give you the best practices for, how did we think about achievements? What were the questions that we asked in terms of development? What worked and what didn't work? But it's kind of like curriculum, right? Is that it's got to be specific to your students and what your students care about and what their context is. It's going to be very different in an urban graduate school environment than it is in a rural K-12 environment than it is on our suburban undergraduate campus, right? And it's going to vary based on the area. Like, we've got this achievement called the MacGyver achievement, which is to build a game out of duct tape and paper clips. And for our students, that's perfect because they're game designers, and it uses what they've done in their game design class. But that's not appropriate for, a graduate law student. Right? And that's not a particularly useful skill for them to demonstrate. One of the real risks in putting something like this together is to make it look too much like extra credit assignments, right? Just more work. And if it looks like more work, the students just aren't going to do it. Most of them have hardly enough time to get done what they have to get done. So this has to layer into what they're doing. That it's more about recognizing the activities they already engage in than it is about trying to get them to do a bunch of new things. And in working with faculty to develop achievements, it's really easy to slip into here's all the additional things I wish my students were doing. And what we discovered with that is that those achievements aren't successful. So there'll be a lot of work involved in designing the content that's specific to a particular area, but we do believe that we can give people at least the guidelines and the best practices of how they could make it work in their environment.
Fantastic. Well, I hope that we can help spread the word when we publish this on DML Central, and there will be a comment thread there. So maybe other educators who are interested in replicating this can ask you a few questions there. So thanks for your time, and let's see where we can go with this.
All right. Thanks, Howard.
Bye.
Bye-bye.